Most people picture hulking snow beasts crushing drifts, but history was written by machines barely bigger than a car. With just 57 horsepower, a Bombardier BR100 could carve tracks where giants got stuck. Some, like the rare Tucker Snow Kitten, were so nimble only 110 were built. But why did these strangely small, often overlooked contraptions become the real lifelines of the Arctic? Their hidden impact is almost forgotten until you see what happens next. In the late 1950s, deep in the forests of Oregon, a ranger watched the snow pile up between the pines. The job called for more than muscle. It needed a machine that could twist and turn between trees, where wide tracks and heavy frames would only get tangled. That is where the Tucker Snow Kitten came in. With just 110 ever built, it was a rare sight but unforgettable. Unlike the big snowcats, the Kitten rode on 4 independent tracks, each able to pivot and grip, letting it weave through dense timber and around fallen logs. Its rounded cab was barely wider than a pickup. The Kitten's steering was as tight as its turning radius, just the length of its own body. Operators remember the way it seemed to dance over drifts, the engine's steady hum, the clatter of steel tracks on ice, and the relief of reaching a remote cabin when no other vehicle could. A decade later, the Bombardier BR100 took on the high country, weighing in at around 900 kilograms, powered by a 57 horsepower industrial engine. It may have looked modest, but its wide reinforced rubber tracks spread its weight so thin it barely left a mark on the snow. Trail groomers and alpine workers relied on the BR100 to climb steep slopes and carve narrow paths where larger machines spun their treads uselessly. In the cab, the operator kept one hand on the lever, the other on the throttle, eyes on the winding trail ahead. The BR100's low ground pressure meant it could float over deep powder, keeping ski trails open and outposts supplied all winter long. For both ranger and trail groomer, these compact machines were not just tools, they were lifelines in a world where getting stuck could mean being stranded for days. On a frozen logging road in northern Quebec, the Bombardier J5 rumbled forward, its tracks biting into packed snow. The J5 looked tough enough to be mistaken for a military vehicle, but its reputation as a mini-tank never fit the facts. Built for work, not war, the J5 was a civilian utility machine through and through, hauling timber, ferrying hydro crews, and pulling trailers loaded with supplies to outposts that vanished under winter drifts. Operators valued its steady crawl and low rev torque, the kind of power that mattered when the nearest road was buried for months. Forestry crews depended on the J5 to keep operations moving, its headlights cutting through snow squalls, the cab warm enough for a thermos of coffee but never luxurious. Across the border, another kind of snow traveler appeared on family farms and rural roads. The Cushman Snow Traveler, with its single track and twin skis, brought powered winter travel within reach for people who had never owned a snow machine before. It was simple, approachable, and accessible, and small enough to store in a barn beside the tractor. For families living miles from town, the Cushman meant groceries and mail could arrive even when the county plow had not come for days. Kids bundled up in the back, parents at the tiller, the engine's gentle putter, a new sound in the winter air. And then there was the Bolens Hus-Ski, a study in minimalism. Just a compact engine, a single track, and a tow bar. The operator rode on a trailing sled, feet braced, bundled against the wind. There was no cab, no heater, nothing extra. Yet for trappers and farmers, the Hus-Ski's bare-bones design was enough to cross frozen fields or reach a distant line of traps. It proved that sometimes the simplest solution was the most reliable, just enough machine to get you home. At the edge of a snow-covered rice terrace in Niagara, a small diesel crawler idles, its engine sending a soft mechanical clatter across the frosted fields. This is a Yanmar crawler tractor, built not for industry or rescue, but for the work of daily life, hauling bundles of rice straw, breaking ice along narrow irrigation channels, and carrying supplies from the village to the upper terraces when the roads disappear under drifts. The machine's steel tracks press gently into the surface, spreading its weight so evenly that even deep powder cannot swallow it whole. Unlike the complicated controls of larger vehicles, the Yanmar relies on a pair of simple levers, one for each track, allowing the operator to steer with gloved hands, even in biting wind. Most of these tractors run on engines no bigger than 20 or 30 horsepower, just enough to pull a sled or a plow without sinking or spinning. On these steep terraced hillsides, where every meter counts and every kilogram matters, the Yanmar's lightweight build and human-scale controls turn winter from an obstacle into another season of work. For the farmers and mechanics who keep these machines running, ingenuity is not a choice. It is what keeps the village connected until the thaw. In a cold British garage, a different kind of snow machine began its journey, not born for winter, but made for it by the hands of collectors and dreamers. The Ferret Scout car was once an armored sentinel of the post-war years, and it found new life far from parade grounds and training fields. Designed in the 1950s for reconnaissance, the Ferret weighed just under 4 tons, and it was powered by a 130 horsepower Rolls-Royce engine. Its aluminum armor was barely thick enough to stop a rifle round. Surplus Ferrets sold off by the Ministry of Defense in the decades after landed in civilian hands across Europe and North America. Tinkerers and enthusiasts saw potential where others saw scrap. With the right set of winter tires, sometimes even custom chains or jury-rigged track attachments, a handful of Ferrets ventured onto frozen lakes and snowy back roads, their squat shapes and hatches becoming symbols of adventure instead of war. These conversions were never factory standard, but each one was a statement that even a relic of conflict could be coaxed with ingenuity and stubbornness into exploring the silent white expanse. In workshops and online forums, stories and photos traded hands, fueling a quiet culture of adaptation. For these collectors, the challenge was never just about making a machine move, it was about rewriting its purpose, one snowy mile at a time. Bright plastic panels, 6 chunky wheels, and a low, boxy body. On the edge of a frozen lake in the late 1970s, the Atex 6x6 looked more like a toy than a tool. But this little amphibious ATV changed the rules for what a snow machine could do. Instead of tracks, it floated on oversized balloon tires, each one soft enough to spread the machine's weight and keep it from sinking into powder or breaking through thin ice. Riders zipped across packed snow, then splashed straight into icy water, the engine's pitch rising as the Atex skimmed over the surface. For hunters, ice fishers, and anyone craving winter adventure, it was freedom in a fiberglass shell. The real surprise came when aftermarket track kits hit the market. Suddenly, the same machine could swap its wheels for rubber treads and crawl through drifts deep enough to stop most snowmobiles. Whether hauling firewood or racing dusk across a frozen lake, the Atex 6x6 blurred the line between work and play. Its design set off a wave of experimentation, inspiring backyard builders and tinkerers to dream up their own all-season, all-terrain creations. In a cluttered garage, sparks fly as a welder fuses scrap steel into a homemade track frame. Chains from a retired farm harrow become drive links, and worn-out snowblower belts are stretched over salvaged pulleys. These homemade machines are built from whatever is on hand: lawnmower engines, all-terrain vehicle axles, the odd bicycle rim. Online forums buzz with photos, wiring diagrams, and field reports from backyards in Minnesota to sheds in Finland. There is no manual, just trial and error and shared advice. Each build is a one-off, shaped by the hands of an unknown maker, a quiet act of ingenuity, ready to pull a sled across the first snowfall. On a crisp morning in the late 1980s, the Yamaha SnoScoot zipped onto winter trails with a sound all its own, a high, eager whine from its compact two-stroke engine. Built with young riders in mind, the SnoScoot weighed less than most full-size snowmobiles, but it delivered real performance on packed snow. Its lightweight frame made it easy to handle, and the small displacement engine, just enough power to climb gentle hills and carve smooth turns, earned it a loyal following beyond its intended age group. For many, the SnoScoot wasn't just a starter sled, it was a ticket to freedom, a machine that made winter feel wide open and possible. Engines thrum and whine, each with its own rhythm, blending into a single mechanical chorus across the empty snow. Small silhouettes move steadily through the fading light, machines built not to impress, but to endure. Against the cold and the silence, cuis. They keep going, leaving tracks that vanish with the next storm. Even today, in a world of oversized machines, it's often the smallest innovations that keep remote lives moving. As winters grow more unpredictable, adaptability, not brute force, remains our edge. The cold still tests us, and the next breakthrough could be waiting in a quiet garage right now. Thanks for watching.